Welcome, sunny souls, to today's Reddit stories. Insurance requires repair quotes on letterhead. My pleasure. Hosted by NoBuild7010. My husband and I bought a boat in a storage lot to flip. We spent months of time and buckets of money to fix her up, and we were getting close to being done. The work included painting and rehabbing the mast, the stick that holds the sails, which was being stored in a cradle next to the boat. It was well inside our space, but it did extend beyond the boat itself a few feet, so we marked it with a neon orange safety cone. Just days after painting the mast, my husband called me from the storage lot with the news that someone had damaged it. Turns out the facility's camera caught the rat trap guy drive right into the mast, knock it to the asphalt, drive over it, stop, then back over it. Naturally, he didn't leave a note, but his truck was easily eyed and he fessed up when confronted. He didn't want to go through insurance, so we worked up a figure based on a spine, used most of it not cheap to replace what was broken, and doing all the work ourselves for free. I think it was less than $1,000, and anyone who knows boats will know what a bargain that was. Even so, he decided to go through insurance after all. The agent who called us needed a quote from a business, not just our scribbled estimate. So I contacted our local cheap boat yard for a DIY quote. They just store the mast while we did all the work. That bumped the total we were seeking to about $2,500. We spent 5 months trying to get the agent to respond, and when he finally did, it was to say they couldn't accept an emailed quote. It had to be an attachment on letterhead. The rinky-dink yard only sends quotes in the body of emails because they have zero forks to give. He all but called us liars and scammers who could have had their buddies supply this fake-looking estimate. No company policy required at least 2 quotes on letterhead to move forward. I confirmed that he would not be able to process our claim without those 2 quotes. Correct. I also confirmed these yards could be anywhere in the state. Correct. I warned him the new quotes would be significantly higher, but he snidely said that was fine as long as they were on letterhead. Key malicious compliance and some FOFO. Having worked in the boating industry for most of my life, I knew exactly who to call, the 2 most respected, i.e. expensive boat yards in the state. These quotes included the yards doing all the work, replacing all damaged gear with new, storage fees, and transportation to and from our storage lot. Both were hundreds of miles away. Unsurprisingly, he called as soon as he got the quotes asking if he could pretty please use the rinky-dink yards quote. Oh, you can't do that. You might get in trouble since it's company policy, right? We have got to follow all the rules lest someone think we're scammers, right? He wasn't happy. A week later, we got to see link the original quote we scribbled down for the rat trap guy. The agent decided to see if we just bend over after he called us liars and cheats. Oh, no way. I called our insurance, who got on the line with the other agent and gave him what for. 2 days later, we got a second check for the remainder. I'm sure someone spit on it, but I was happy enough to deposit that $14. Here's my AI opinion. This story is an excellent example of how important it is to stand up for oneself and not be afraid to push back against unreasonable demands or expectations. The author of the story demonstrated great resilience and determination in dealing with the insurance agent's unreasonable requests and ultimately received a satisfactory resolution. The story also highlights the importance of having a clear understanding of one's rights and boundaries, as well as being prepared to advocate for oneself when necessary. The author's knowledge of the boating industry and their experience with insurance claims likely played a significant role in their ability to navigate this situation successfully. Overall, this story is an inspiring example of how standing up for oneself and refusing to accept unreasonable demands can lead to positive outcomes, even in difficult situations. What is the main theme of this story? What did the rat trap guy do to the mast of the boat? A comment from Mark Farm.
The stick that holds the sails.
Grouchy old Genzer commented.
I went through the opposite of this. Daughter hit a car while parking. Offered the guy $1,000 cash. He said no, the estimate was like $2,000, and so he said take it to insurance. I took a look at the pictures of the damage and noticed that most of his damage was on the quarter panel above the wheel well. My daughter drove a Sebring and no way did it damage his car above the wheel well. I pointed this out to my agent. Guy got $750 for the damage my daughter did.
If you want to listen to the latest Reddit stories, subscribing is the way to go. Just click that button and you'll never miss a video. African exchange student. Posted by Kike929. Here's my all-time favorite malicious compliance story. I studied history in Germany, and while there, an African exchange student enrolled as well. He had a very thick accent and had quite a lot of trouble putting his thoughts to paper. So when an assignment was due, he asked the elderly professor if he could write the assignment in English, where he had way more ease expressing himself. The elderly professor didn't want to admit that his English was rather bad, so instead he referenced the university guidelines that stipulated that except for language studies all assignments were to be written in either German or Latin. Little did the professor know that the African exchange student was in fact schooled in a Jesuit monastery, so he did turn in the assignment in perfect Latin. Since the professor had specialized in modern history, he needed the help of a Latin professor to grade the assignment. The university guidelines have been amended a year later. Assignments in Latin are only acceptable for those studying Latin anymore. Disclaimer: not a native speaker in English. Here is my AI opinion. This story is a great example of malicious compliance, as the African exchange student was able to use the university guidelines to his advantage and submit an assignment written in Latin, which was not what the professor had intended. The student's ability to speak Latin and the professor's lack of knowledge about the language led to an unexpected outcome, which highlights the potential for malicious compliance in academic settings. Would you like me to elaborate on any specific aspect of this story? What is malicious compliance? Why did the African exchange student ask the professor if he could write the assignment in English? Light past 1166 commented.
Now that's a real malicious compliance.
A comment from Rodney Meyer.
OP, you should post this to r/Latin as well. This is great.
You can't request off, you can call in. Malice interrupted. Listed by Ancient Educator 76. I was in the middle of writing down a request, in writing for a day off about 3 weeks from now. I am the main order taker at Mendy's. Listener extraordinaire, if you will. I was smiling and excited as I wrote, proud papa beaming because my son moved up the football ranks to varsity, and varsity plays Fridays. I understood how much this sucked because I usually have Wednesday off for the missus and Thursdays off for my boys' high school football games. Varsity plays Fridays. I knew I was going to miss a lot of his games, but I figured I'd request off the last home half of the year, as it's our district rival. Before I could get a complete date scribbled, my manager, Alberto, says, "Hey, you can't request off." I looked at his face trying to see if he was joking. He wasn't. Enter my first attempt at MC. I said, "Really? It's one day?" He then said, as I tried to change my wording from request to inform, like I won't be in this day, he said, "You can't call off either. Seriously, if you call me the day, you are no longer here." Enter next MC. Day of the rivalry game fast approaches, Travis Etienne style, totally unexpected but expected all at once. I text in. I messaged Alberto, "Hey, you said I couldn't call you today, so I'm texting. I won't be in tonight." I also emailed you along with the division manager's CCD in to remind you that Mendy's has a policy that allows for requesting off many days in advance. My request was instantly denied 3 weeks before the game. Now I'm just reminding you that I won't be there if you're expecting me. I walked back in my next scheduled day and Alberto apologized profusely, saying, "Why didn't you tell me?" Like I need a reason. Here is my AI opinion. It seems like you had a negative experience with your manager at Mendy's, Alberto. He denied your request for a day off 3 weeks before the game, and then told you that you couldn't call in or text him on the day of the game. This was unexpected and frustrating for you, as you had previously been allowed to take time off for your son's football games. It's understandable that you would want to remind Alberto of Mendy's policy allowing for requesting off in advance, and it's good that you did so in a professional manner by emailing him and copying the division manager. However, it may have been more effective to speak with Alberto in person or over the phone, rather than texting him. It's also possible that Alberto was having a bad day or was under a lot of stress, which could have contributed to his behavior towards you. It might be helpful to talk to him and try to understand where he was coming from, but also make it clear that you expect to be treated with respect and professionalism in the future. Overall, it seems like this experience has left a bad taste in your mouth, and it may be worth considering looking for a new job or at least discussing the situation with HR. It's important to prioritize your own well-being and make sure that you are working in a positive and supportive environment. What is the main issue that the writer is facing in this situation? How did the writer try to resolve the issue with the manager, Alberto? A comment from HateStabber13.
Because if I did, you still would have denied it. Manager acting like you are the bad guy when you were following policy.
Real Ultimate Papa commented.
You didn't ask, except that time I told you not to. Hell loud to hear, Bertie. Nobody's buying your BS.
OP replied. Agreed. Thanks for tuning in today. Subscribe for more intriguing Reddit stories.